The killing of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani marks the latest erosion of the world order through which governments are supposed to operate under an agreed rule of law. It may also mark the beginning of the end of the short quarter-century cycle that began with the tearing down of the Berlin Wall in 1989, when victors in the West declared that their system of electoral democracy was the endpoint of all political development. Centuries from now, they may be proved right, but at the start of this second decade of the 21st century, they have been found to be woefully wrong. In short, the West has badly misread human nature, its propensity for violence, and its quest for dignity. It also underlines America's long memory of enemies who have defied its will. I'm your host Qasim, and thanks for joining me for another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss the collapse of the international order in context of the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian commander, by the US. Just before we start, I would like to give a special shout out to author Humphrey Hawksley, who is the author of this video. Humphrey Hawksley is a serial author of the fictional thriller series Man on Ice and Man on Edge, featuring Rake Ozena. Soleimani, 62, died in an American drone attack on the Baghdad airport road on January the 3rd after arriving on a short flight from Damascus. His reputation was as the architect of Iran's growing regional influence over the past 2 decades in trouble spots such as Syria, Yemen, Lebanon and Iraq itself. The United States branded Soleimani a terrorist, but he was also a highly regarded official within the Iranian government, setting him apart from other targets such as the 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden, who the US killed in 2011, and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of the Islamic State, or Daesh, who killed himself during a US attack last October. These men were leaders of non-state terror organizations, whereas Soleimani was a senior official employed by a sovereign state. His killing therefore was a state-on-state authorized operation when no war had officially been declared. It took place in Iraq, another sovereign country that had not been consulted. Iraqi politician and militia leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis also died in the attack. Since his assassination, there has been an outpouring of condemnation and threats from Iran, a non-binding vote in the Iraqi parliament to expel some 6,000 US troops in the country, attacks on US facilities in Iraq and as far away as Kenya, and a redeployment of troops to protect US personnel and installations, taking them away from the mission of mopping up the remnants of the Islamic State. Tehran has also declared it will now openly violate the 2015 nuclear deal that was aimed at ending its isolation, preventing it from building a nuclear weapon and boosting its economy. There has also been a ramping up of rhetoric from President Donald Trump. He declares that America has 52 Iranian targets in its sights, 52 matching the number of American hostages held in Iran after the 1979 revolution and takeover of the US embassy in Tehran. Among them are Iran's ancient historical sites, even though attacking them should be prohibited by international conventions. The announcement is telling in its open dismissal of the world order, and by pulling in the 40-year-old hostage crisis, it shows that America has neither forgiven nor forgotten the Iranian overthrow of its corrupt ally, the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Perhaps this, as much as Iran's aggression, makes the US-Iran relationship so insoluble. Here, historical context can help make sense of the current crisis at 2 levels. Firstly, the dangerous deterioration of the rules-based world order, which was negotiated after the Second World War with the United Nations and other institutions at its core. Immediately, the global balance was enveloped in the Cold War between Soviet-style communism and Western-driven democratic capitalism, which prevailed in 1989 with the subsequent collapse of the Soviet Union. From there, dozens of countries experimented with electoral democracy. Results were mixed. A more developed Europe under the auspices of the European Union fared far better than underdeveloped Asia and Africa with its weak and corrupt institutions. The nuance that democracy did not work everywhere failed to percolate in the Western corridors of power, such that in 2003 the US, backed by the United Kingdom and others, invaded Iraq to overthrow a dictator, claiming that the streets would be full of celebrations like in the liberation of Paris from the Nazis in 1945. The attempt to export democracy to a non-Western culture was catastrophic, leading to a civil war, the rise of Islamic terrorists, and opening the door for Iran to expand its influence in the Middle East. This result was compounded by the West's encouragement of the so-called Arab Spring, which led to Libya becoming a violent failed state, Egypt a military dictatorship, and Syria run by its long-standing dictator, Russia and Iran. Simultaneously came the financial crisis of 2008, causing widespread global hardship and shredding the Western claim that the path to stability, fair wealth distribution and strong institutions lay with democratic capitalism. In the eyes of many, that argument was dead. The second level is embedded in the US memory about its defeats. Iran is one of the several nation states that remains unforgiven for throwing out the American dream. Among others are China, where in 1949 Mao Zedong ousted the US-backed nationalist government that fled to Taiwan. In 1958, Cuba's Fidel Castro overthrew the vicious military dictatorship of President Fulgencio Batista. In 1975, North Vietnamese troops took control of South Vietnam with the iconic photograph of Americans fleeing by helicopter from the roof of the US Embassy there. These new governments faced decades of isolation from the US-controlled world order. Banking and trade, the economic lifeblood of national survival, even getting everyday spare parts for machinery, was kept out of their reach. The 1960s old American cars that are used throughout Cuba are evidence of isolation. China was only brought into the fold when it was expedient to do so, to strengthen the US in Asia against the Soviet Union. Cuba was edging out of isolation under Barack Obama, but that process has stalled under Trump. Vietnam is only now being befriended as a counterweight to China's expansion. It describes its long conflict with the United States as the necessary war, meaning that despite the sacrifice it felt, it had to expel American influence in order to retain national dignity. After 40 years, there is evidence enough to show that Iran is driven by a similar need, and that as with Cuba, China and Vietnam, there will be no quick fix to the relationship with the US. The winners therefore will be Russia and China. After a brief spell of wider global concerns, the Soleimani killing is likely to focus the American foreign policy debate and intelligence resources back to the Middle East. It risks allowing China to further consolidate its influence in the Indo-Pacific and Russia to strengthen its networks in the Middle East, where it is already working closely with Iran, and in Central Asia and Europe. A state-on-state assassination followed by threats to destroy ancient cultural relics has left the ruleless-based order smouldering among corpses on the Baghdad airport road. Lawyers will argue on the legality of the killing and the commentariat on its rights and wrongs and how it will help keep Americans safer or put them in more danger. But for now, we have returned to global governance through raw power. It may have been always so, but now there is no pretense. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. We hope you enjoyed this video and would love to hear your views in the comments below. Please don't forget to visit www.manonedge.co.uk to purchase this fascinating fictional thriller series by Humphrey Hawksley, who was the author of this script. Please also visit our website kjvids.co.uk to read more geopolitical analysis. Thanks for watching again, and see you next time.